In the grim dark universe of Warhammer 40,000, where hope is a rare commodity and the spectre of death looms over every corner of existence, the Cadian Shock Troops stand as a beacon of tenacity and courage. Originating from the arid desert world of Cadia, these elite soldiers have been forged in the crucible of their harsh environment, developing a resilience that makes them formidable warriors in the service of the Imperium of Man. The Cadian Shock Troops are not merely soldiers. They are a product of their world, molded by extreme conditions and the relentless need for survival against both environmental hardships and the myriad threats from the galaxy. The history of the Cadian Shock Troops is steeped in the lore of their desert planet. Cadia is characterized by vast stretches of arid land, dotted with scarce oases and harsh weather conditions that make it inhospitable for most life forms. The inhabitants of Cadia have adapted to this unforgiving environment, becoming master survivalists. From a young age, recruits undergo rigorous training that emphasizes endurance, agility, and combat skills. They learn to navigate the desert terrain, become adept at guerrilla warfare, and use the environment to their advantage. This background shapes their operational doctrine, allowing them to execute rapid assaults and hit-and-run tactics that can outmaneuver even the most organized enemy formations. The Cadian Shock Troops are often called upon to bolster the ranks of the Imperial Guard during critical engagements. Their reputation for executing swift and decisive strikes against overwhelming enemy forces has earned them a place of honor within the larger Imperial military structure. Their training emphasizes not just raw firepower, but also the ability to adapt to rapidly changing battlefield conditions. This adaptability is crucial in the 41st millennium, where enemies can range from the insidious Tyranids to the relentless forces of chaos. Armed with specialized weaponry and clad in adaptive combat armor, they excel in flanking maneuvers and the kind of guerrilla warfare that can turn the tide of battle. One of the most notable engagements involving the Cadian Shock Troops occurred during the Third Tyrannic War, a cataclysmic conflict that pitted the Imperium against the relentless Tyranid swarm. This particular battle, known as the Battle of Karas Plains, would become a defining moment not only for the Cadian forces but for the entire Imperial defense network in the region. As the Tyranid forces advanced, reports flooded into Imperial command about the horrific bioforms that consumed everything in their path. The situation grew increasingly dire, and the need for immediate reinforcements was paramount. The Karas Plains, an essential strategic location for the Imperium's supply lines and communication networks, was on the brink of being overrun. Colonel Jarek, the seasoned commander of the Cadian Shock Troops, received the orders to deploy his elite force to the front lines. He understood that the key to victory lay in the ability to strike quickly and decisively before the Tyranid forces could fully encircle the outpost. The Cadian Shock Troops, numbering around 300 elite soldiers, were briefed on their mission. They were to conduct hit-and-run assaults on the Tyranid flanks, sowing confusion among the ranks and providing critical intelligence on enemy movements. Equipped with specialized melter guns for high-impact strikes and grenade launchers for area suppression, the Shock Troops were ready to face the oncoming tide of alien horrors. As dawn broke over the Karas Plains, the air thick with tension, the sound of distant chittering echoed across the fields, sending a chill down the spine of even the most seasoned veteran. The Cadian Shock Troops moved in silence, their camouflaged gear blending seamlessly with the arid landscape. Colonel Jarek signaled the advance, and the troops sprinted toward their designated positions, a wave of determination and adrenaline propelling them forward. The first shots rang out as the Tyranid forces emerged from the horizon, monstrous creatures with elongated limbs and snapping jaws charging toward the Imperial outpost. The Shock Troops opened fire, their melter guns slicing through the chitinous armor of the advancing gaunts. Explosions erupted as grenade launchers sent rounds spiraling into the heart of the swarm, causing chaos among the enemy ranks. The battlefield erupted into a cacophony of sound, punctuated by the screams of dying Tyranids and the shouts of the Cadian soldiers. With the initial assault underway, Colonel Jarek quickly assessed the battlefield. The Tyranid forces, though numerous, lacked cohesion. Their hive minds struggled to adapt to the rapid and unpredictable tactics employed by the shock troops. Seizing the moment, Jarek ordered a flanking maneuver. Half of the force broke off, darting into the sparse cover of the plains, while the remaining troops laid down suppressive fire to keep the Tyranids at bay. The shock troops surged forward, moving like shadows across the battlefield. They targeted the larger bioforms, focusing their fire on the carnifexes that lumbered behind the smaller gaunts. These towering monstrosities posed a significant threat, capable of shrugging off conventional firepower with their thick chitin, but the Cadian soldiers were not deterred. Coordinated assaults synchronized their fire, and one by one, the carnifexes fell, their death throes sending ripples of panic through the Tyranid ranks. Yet, as the battle progressed, the Tyranids began to adapt. They reformed their lines, sending in larger waves of gaunts to overwhelm the shock troops. The once chaotic battlefield turned into a brutal melee, with the shock troops fighting tooth and nail to hold their ground. Colonel Jarek's voice crackled over the comms, urging his men to maintain their formation and continue the assault. Amidst the chaos, Corporal Mira, a seasoned veteran of the shock troops, found herself surrounded as the tide of battle shifted. With her squad decimated, she fought valiantly, unleashing a flurry of fire from her melter gun. Each shot was a desperate bid for survival, the memories of her fallen comrades fueling her resolve. She could hear the cries of her fellow soldiers echoing in her ears, but she pressed on, determined to make every shot count. In that moment, she embodied the spirit of the Cadian Shock Troops, unyielding and fierce. The battlefield swirled around her, a nightmarish tableau of violence and death. The Cadian Shock Troops, though outnumbered, were holding their ground, but the overwhelming numbers of the Tyranids began to take their toll. As the enemy pressed in, Colonel Jarek executed a bold move, ordering a full-scale retreat to a nearby ridge. It was a risky gamble, but Jarek understood that the terrain could be used to their advantage. As the shock troops fell back, the Tyranids pursued, eager to capitalize on their momentum. This was the moment Jarek had been waiting for. From the high ground, the shock troops turned and unleashed hell upon the advancing swarm. With a commanding view of the battlefield, they rained down fire, targeting the Tyranids with precision and ferocity. The retreat had drawn them into a deadly trap, and now the shock troops unleashed a torrent of explosives, turning the ridge into a killing zone. The Cadian soldiers took advantage of the elevated position, their adaptive combat armor shielding them as they prepared for the assault. The Tyranid forces, caught off guard by the sudden change in momentum, faltered momentarily as they faced a barrage of firepower. The shock troops poured everything they had into the oncoming wave, their resolve hardening as they witnessed the effectiveness of their strategy. With the Tyranid advance momentarily halted, Colonel Jarek saw the opportunity to strike. He rallied the remaining shock troops for a final push, his voice booming through the chaos. "For Cadia, for the Emperor," he bellowed, igniting a fierce resolve in his troops. As one, they charged down the ridge, their adrenaline surging as they engaged the Tyranids in a desperate melee. Chainswords clashed against claws, and lasguns emitted a cacophony of sound as the two sides collided. The battlefield became a maelstrom of violence, but amidst the chaos, the Cadian shock troops fought with an unyielding spirit. Corporal Mira, fueled by adrenaline and the desire to avenge her fallen comrades, fought alongside her fellow soldiers, their resilience shining through the darkest moments. The shock troops pushed forward, cutting a bloody path through the Tyranid swarm. The tide was turning, and the once encroaching darkness began to recede. With every enemy slain, the soldiers felt a surge of hope, a sense that their relentless struggle was beginning to pay off. As the battle raged on, the Cadian Shock Troops began to realize that they were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for each other, for the bonds forged in the fires of combat. They became a cohesive unit, their movements synchronized, each soldier instinctively understanding the other's intentions. This camaraderie proved to be their greatest weapon as they continued to push back against the encroaching swarm. With every Tyranid they dispatched, the morale of the shock troops grew stronger. They could hear the groans of their enemies as they fell, the chittering sounds of panic reverberating through the ranks of the Tyranids. Colonel Jarek, seeing the shift in the tide, rallied his troops, urging them to press forward. "This is our moment. We will not falter. We will drive them back." The final assault was a symphony of destruction. The shock troops fought with unrelenting ferocity, their weapons singing a song of death as they carved their way through the mass of alien flesh. The battlefield was strewn with the remnants of the swarm, a testament to the ferocity of the engagement. The Cadian Shock Troops fought not as individuals but as a singular force, a wall of determination that the Tyranids could not breach. As the last of the Tyranids fell, the battered remnants of the Cadian Shock Troops emerged victorious. Colonel Jarek surveyed the scene, pride swelling in his chest for his brave soldiers who had faced the abyss and emerged triumphant. He knew that the cost had been high, but they had held the line and saved the outpost from certain destruction. In the days that followed, the outpost of Karas Plains was reinforced and fortified, serving as a bulwark against future Tyranid incursions. The Cadian Shock Troops were celebrated as heroes, their deeds immortalized in the annals of Imperial history. Though they had faced insurmountable odds, their unwavering spirit and tactical brilliance had saved countless lives. The Battle of Karas Plains not only exemplified the prowess of the Cadian Shock Troops, but also highlighted the resilience of humanity in the face of overwhelming despair. The soldiers who survived would carry the scars of battle with them, both physical and emotional, forever changed by their experiences. Yet, they understood that their sacrifices were not in vain. They had fought for the Imperium, for each other, and for the future of humanity. As they moved forward, the Cadian Shock Troops carried the lessons learned from the battlefield with them. Their experiences taught them the importance of adaptability, the value of camaraderie, and the necessity of unwavering determination in the face of adversity. These principles would guide them in all future engagements, shaping their identity as elite warriors of the Imperium. The tale of the Cadian Shock Troops in the Warhammer 40,000 universe serves as a testament to the power of the human spirit and the indomitable will to fight against insurmountable odds. In a galaxy filled with horrors and darkness, they remain a shining example of bravery, dedication, and sacrifice. Their story continues, echoing through the ages, a reminder that hope can endure even in the most desperate of times. As the Cadian Shock Troops returned to their base of operations after the Battle of Karas Plains, they were met with a mixture of reverence and celebration. The stories of their heroism spread like wildfire, not just among their fellow soldiers, but throughout the ranks of the Imperial Guard. Tales of their courage inspired others to rise against the darkness, fostering a renewed sense of hope within the Imperium. Colonel Jarek, who had displayed remarkable strategic acumen during the battle, was decorated for his leadership. He received commendations and was hailed as a hero, but he remained humble, attributing the victory to the bravery and skill of his troops. He knew that victory in war was never solely the result of one individual's actions. It was a collective effort that relied on trust, unity, and sacrifice. In the following weeks, the Cadian Shock Troops were given the opportunity to rest and regroup. Yet, even in moments of respite, the soldiers remained vigilant. They were acutely aware that the galaxy was fraught with dangers, and the Tyranids were not the only threat lurking in the shadows. The forces of chaos, Xenos raiders, and other horrors awaited them, ready to exploit any weakness. During this time, Colonel Jarrett took it upon himself to ensure that his troops were not only prepared for the next battle, but also mentally and emotionally equipped to face the challenges ahead. He organized debriefings where soldiers shared their experiences, creating an environment where they could process their trauma collectively. This initiative fostered camaraderie and understanding, allowing them to confront their fears and anxieties. Corporal Mira, one of the soldiers who had fought valiantly during the Battle of Karas Plains, found herself reflecting on her experiences. The memories of her squad mates who had fallen weighed heavily on her heart. She often visited the memorial erected in honor of the deceased, paying her respects and vowing to carry their memory into every future engagement. The pain of loss became a driving force, motivating her to fight harder and honor their sacrifices. As their time of rest came to an end, the Cadian Shock Troops received new orders. Intelligence reports indicated that the Tyranids were regrouping and another offensive was imminent. This time, they would be tasked with a more aggressive role, infiltrating the Tyranid lines to gather intelligence and disrupt their communication networks. The mission was fraught with danger, but the Cadian Shock Troops were undeterred. Colonel Jarek briefed his troops on the upcoming operation, emphasizing the importance of stealth and precision. "We are not just warriors, we are guardians of humanity. Every piece of information we gather, every Tyranid we disrupt, brings us one step closer to securing our future. We will not shy away from this challenge." The soldiers nodded in agreement, their spirits bolstered by Jarek's words. They prepared their gear, checking their weapons, and ensuring that each piece of equipment was in working order. As they readied themselves for the mission, the air was filled with a sense of determination. The Cadian Shock Troops were not merely soldiers. They were a family bound by shared experiences and an unbreakable will. As they deployed into the field, the landscape shifted from the familiar plains to the twisted, alien terrain that the Tyranids had claimed. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and the haunting chittering of the Xenos echoed in the distance. The shock troops moved quietly, utilizing the skills they had honed in the deserts of Cadia. They navigated the terrain with ease, their training allowing them to blend seamlessly into the environment. The operation was initially successful, with the shock troops gathering critical intelligence and sabotaging Tyranid communication nodes. However, as they pressed deeper into enemy territory, they encountered greater resistance. The Tyranids, having learned from previous engagements, had adapted their tactics, deploying more formidable bioforms to guard their vital assets. In a tense skirmish, the Cadian shock troops found themselves outnumbered and outgunned. Yet, rather than succumb to despair, they rallied together, using their training and the lessons learned from past battles to mount a fierce counteroffensive. They employed flanking maneuvers, utilizing their knowledge of the terrain to create ambush points and draw the enemy into traps. Corporal Mira fought alongside her comrades, her resolve unwavering as she faced the oncoming tide of Tyranid warriors. The memory of her fallen squad mates spurred her on, fueling her determination to protect those who remained. With each enemy she felled, she felt a sense of catharsis, a release of the grief she'd carried since the Battle of Karas Plains. As the battle raged, Colonel Jarek's tactical acumen shone through once again. He recognized the need to withdraw strategically, preserving the lives of his remaining troops while ensuring that they would live to fight another day. With a combination of precision, fire, and calculated retreats, the shock troops managed to escape the encroaching Tyranids, bringing back invaluable intelligence that would be used to counter the enemy's next move. Back at their base, the Cadian shock troops took time to debrief and analyze the mission. Colonel Jarek emphasized the importance of learning from their experiences, both positive and negative. "Every battle teaches us something new," he stated. "We will adapt, we will evolve, and we will overcome. This is not just about survival. It's about ensuring that our sacrifices mean something." As the Cadian Shock Troops prepared for future engagements, they understood that their role in the Imperium was far more than mere soldiers charging into battle. They were protectors of humanity, defenders of a legacy that spanned millennia. Each mission was imbued with purpose, and each soldier carried the weight of that responsibility on their shoulders. The legacy of the Cadian Shock Troops would continue to grow, their battles becoming intertwined with the broader narrative of the Imperium's struggle against the darkness. They would face new threats, new challenges, and new horrors in the vast expanse of the galaxy, but through it all they would remain steadfast, united by the bonds forged in the fires of war. Their tale, filled with courage, sacrifice, and the relentless pursuit of hope, would echo through the annals of Imperial history. In a universe where despair is a constant companion, the Cadian Shock Troops serve as a reminder that even amidst chaos, the human spirit can endure, fight, and ultimately triumph against the overwhelming tide of darkness. As they continue to navigate the treacherous waters of warfare, their story is a testament to the resilience of humanity, a beacon of hope shining brightly in a galaxy that desperately needs it. The Cadian Shock Troops will forever stand as guardians, ready to face the challenges that lie ahead, embodying the spirit of their world and the unyielding will of the Imperium. The Cadian Shock Troops, having proven their mettle in the Battle of Karas Plains and subsequent engagements, became a symbol of hope and resilience within the Imperium. Their legacy would inspire countless other regiments, fostering a culture of bravery and determination among Imperial forces. As they continued to serve, they would pass on their knowledge and experiences to new recruits, ensuring that the spirit of the Shock Troops lived on. With each passing year, the Cadian Shock Troops faced new trials, each more daunting than the last. The galaxy was a treacherous place, filled with ancient horrors and relentless foes. Yet, despite the overwhelming odds, the Shock Troops maintained their unwavering commitment to the Emperor and the Imperium. They understood that their purpose was not just to fight. It was to protect, to defend the innocent, and to stand against the encroaching darkness that threatened to consume humanity. As the years turned into decades, the Cadian Shock Troops became both feared and respected. Their reputation as elite warriors spread throughout the Imperium, drawing the attention of both allies and enemies alike. Imperial commanders sought their expertise in rapid assault tactics, while foes learned to fear the distinctive battle cry of the Shock Troops that echoed across the battlefield. Corporal Mira, now a seasoned veteran, took on a mentorship role within the ranks. She worked tirelessly to train new recruits, imparting the wisdom she had gained through her experiences. Each lesson was imbued with a sense of purpose, a recognition that they were not just preparing for combat, but also forging a legacy that would endure through the ages. In the training grounds, Myra would often recount the stories of the Battle of Karas Plains, illustrating the importance of unity and sacrifice. "We are not just individuals. We are a family," she would say. "Each of us has a role to play, and together we are stronger than any enemy we face. Remember the lessons of the past. They will guide you in the future." As new threats emerged in the galaxy, the Cadian Shock Troops found themselves increasingly called upon to respond. The forces of chaos began to stir, their insidious influence spreading like a plague across the Imperium. The Shock Troops were thrust into a new conflict, one that would test their resolve and challenge their very beliefs. In this new war, the stakes were higher than ever. The Cadian Shock Troops were deployed to the planet of Veridonia, a lush world that had fallen under the sway of a chaos cult. The cultists had summoned forth dark powers, twisting the land and unleashing abominations that threatened both the planet and its inhabitants. The shock troops were tasked with rooting out the cultists and purging the planet of the chaos taint. As they arrived on Veridonia, the contrast to their desert home was stark. The vibrant greenery and rich soil were a far cry from the arid sands of Cadia, but the shock troops adapted quickly. They utilized their training to navigate the dense jungles, employing stealth and precision to take down cultist outposts and gather intelligence about the enemy's operations. Colonel Jarek, now a battle-hardened leader, commanded the shock troops with a steady hand. He understood the importance of intelligence and reconnaissance in this new environment. "We must be like shadows," he instructed his troops. "Strike hard, fade away, and leave no trace. The enemy must not know our movements." As they delved deeper into the jungles, the Cadian Shock Troops began to uncover the full extent of the chaos threat. The cultists were not merely fanatics. They had tapped into dark sorcery, summoning demonic entities that prowled the night. The nature of their enemy shifted, and the shock troops found themselves facing horrors that challenged their very sanity. In one harrowing encounter, the shock troops stumbled upon a ritual being conducted by the cultists. They witnessed the summoning of a greater daemon, a monstrous entity that towered over the trees, its very presence radiating malevolence. The sight was enough to freeze the hearts of lesser men, but the shock troops were trained to face such horrors. Colonel Jarek quickly devised a plan to disrupt the ritual. He ordered his troops to form a perimeter, utilizing their knowledge of guerrilla tactics to launch a surprise assault. As they unleashed a torrent of fire upon the cultists, the ground shook with the power of the summoned daemon. Yet, the shock troops fought with a fervor that belied their fear, determined to prevent the dark ritual from reaching completion. The battle was brutal and chaotic. The Cadian Shock Troops fought tooth and nail against the cultists, their weapons blazing as they pushed forward. Corporal Mira, now a squad leader, led her men with unwavering resolve, her experience shining through as she shouted orders and directed fire. "Keep moving! We must not let them finish the ritual." Despite the overwhelming power of the daemon, the shock troops fought valiantly. They utilized their training in rapid assaults, flanking the cultists and cutting down anyone who stood in their way. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning flesh, but they pressed on, fueled by the memories of their fallen comrades and a fierce determination to protect humanity. As the ritual reached its climax, the greater daemon began to materialize, its form twisting and writhing in the air. The shock troops could feel its dark power washing over them, threatening to consume their very souls. But Colonel Jarek rallied his troops, reminding them of their purpose. "We are the shield of humanity. We will not falter." In a desperate attempt to disrupt the summoning, the Cadian Shock Troops concentrated their fire on the cultists performing the ritual. With precision shooting and coordinated attacks, they eliminated the key figures, throwing the ritual into chaos. The greater daemon howled in rage as its connection to the mortal realm was severed, flickering in and out of existence. In those final moments, the shock troops unleashed everything they had. The air crackled with energy as they fired their weapons, each shot a declaration of defiance against the darkness. The daemon dissipated, its form collapsing into nothingness, leaving behind only the echoes of its fury. The battle was won, but not without a cost. The Cadian Shock Troops had suffered losses, their ranks thinned by the ferocity of the enemy. Yet, they emerged victorious, their resolve unbroken. Colonel Jarek surveyed the battlefield, knowing that while they had triumphed, the fight against chaos was far from over. In the aftermath of the battle, the Cadian Shock Troops regrouped and tended to their wounded. They held a memorial for their fallen comrades, honoring their sacrifices and vowing to continue the fight. As they stood together, united in purpose, they understood that they were not just soldiers. They were guardians of humanity, defenders of a legacy that spanned millennia. As the galaxy continued to churn with chaos and conflict, the Cadian Shock Troops would remain steadfast in their resolve. They would face new challenges, new horrors, and new battles, but they would do so with the knowledge that they were part of something greater than themselves. Their legacy would endure, a testament to the unyielding spirit of humanity and the power of hope in the face of despair. Through their experiences, the Cadian Shock Troops embodied the values of courage, sacrifice, and resilience. Their story would echo through the ages, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit could rise up and fight against the encroaching void. The Cadian Shock Troops would stand ready, prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead, unyielding in their dedication to the Emperor and the Imperium of Man. Their journey through the horrors of war would continue, each battle adding to the rich tapestry of their legacy. As they fought on, they would inspire generations to come, instilling a sense of hope and courage in the hearts of those who would follow in their footsteps. The Cadian Shock Troops were not just warriors. They were the embodiment of humanity's will to survive and thrive, even in the face of overwhelming odds. As they prepared for the next chapter in their storied history, the Cadian Shock Troops would carry the weight of their past with them, a constant reminder of what they fought for. They would continue to be a shining example of bravery, dedication, and sacrifice, a legacy that would endure through the ages in the ever-expanding universe of Warhammer 40,000.